Can you hear me now? My name's Callum Edwards from Australia.
Well, welcome to Wednesday, March 31st, New Tracks Meetup. Thank you so much for coming. Hope you enjoy the show. I think you will.
I'm sorry, Jim. I had my computer muted you. Sorry about that.
You want to start it over?
Sure, we can do that. You also turned your video off.
How's that?
Yep, gotcha. All right.
Good evening. Welcome to Wednesday, March 31st Meetup. Thank you so much for coming. Think you'll really enjoy the show tonight. Come back often, and I hope that you'll tell your friends to join us. If you're new to the show, please register at our website, newtracksmodeling.com, and don't forget to confirm the registration by email that'll be sent to you. If you don't confirm it, then it's the same as not registering. So you need to register on the site and then confirm it by an email. Our next My Build is May the 29th. And in addition to the My Build on May the 29th, we're going to have two special My Builds that night. One for Bob Farquhar and his build, and the other for Gaylord Gill and Randy Bosser for their build. So on May the 29th, it's going to be a busy evening because we're going to have the normal My Build show, as well as the two special for the people that are doing the build-alongs with those products. I got an email a few minutes ago from Paul Thompson, who has not yet arrived home and therefore won't be with us until possibly later this evening. So we won't be able to get his quick tips tonight. So let me turn now to Clark Cooney. The other night, Clark volunteered to do a small section on modeling tools. And I really do appreciate you wanting to do this, Clark. Thank you so much, and I'll turn it over to you, sir.
Thank you. We're going to share the screen, if I may. I think How's that, everybody?
Good.
Okay, so let's. I really am in that club. The guy with the most tools when he dies is the winner. And I love tools and gadgets, and I think that's why Al Collins and I get along so well. He's a tool guy too. Anyway, let's go. So, you know, if you're going to be building a model railroad, you need the proper tools. And one of the things you have to do is buy well, buy once. And that goes for any tool or anything you do, in my opinion. Don't, you know, a lot of people say, oh, I'm cheap. Well, you know, you're buying a tool that's going to last you a lifetime. So buy something that's got some value in it. And that doesn't mean you have to go crazy. There's some tools, there's no need to spend a lot of money. You know, you can go to Harbor Freight or other places and get them. So, but buy well, buy once. And let's make things clear. I see this all the time. Guys, if you're a plumber, you have plumbing tools. If you're a woodworker, you have woodworking tools. And if you're a modeler, you should have model tools. And there's lots of crossovers, you know, clamps, glues, pliers, and the list goes on that cross over into just your regular everyday household tools compared to model tools. But at some point, you're going to need some model tools. You know, X-Acto blades, an assortment of sizes, small pliers, squares, specialty cutters, track gauges, and tools related for track work, and the list goes on.
Clark, can I interrupt you just a minute?
Yes, sir.
There's somebody has got a radio on or television or something in the background because it's coming over you.
Somebody's watching curling again.
Yes. I didn't realize it was on, to be honest. I couldn't hear it. How's that? That's better. I'm sorry, you guys.
Yeah, that's better. Thank you.
A major apology. I hate when people do that. And here I am doing it myself. All right. Do you have some tools? A lot of people, you know, this is really one of those things that everybody has their own little tool that they like to use or they found that works for them. And that's really important. So maybe we can do some sharing of tool ideas later on. So one of the big things is lighting. And I can't stress this enough. If you have a bench and you're doing your modeling in a different area of other than on your layout, make sure you're using the same light on your workbench that you do in the railroad room. Prime example, I had a friend of mine who custom built and painted before you could buy anything like this, some Ontario Northern or on some O&R cars, and he had a custom make the paint, and they were just gorgeous on his workbench. When he brought them out and put them on his layout, they went from green to blue. And the reason is because of the different lighting. So make sure you're using the same light on your workbench that you do have on the layout. Additional lights like the op light is fantastic to reduce shadows. And for older models, it really creates a better vision. I'm in that category. I like really bright workspaces. So lighting at your workbench. Now, this is a little portable workbench. We could talk about workbenches all the time that I have that slides underneath the layout. And I do a lot of stuff here because it's handy to the layout. And if I'm need to trial and error stuff, it works well. But you can see I've got obviously the room light, which is the same as going to be on the bench. And I've also got my opt light that you can buy at Michael's or any of those other stores or Amazon. One of the things I do for all my workbenches, I cover them with a 30 thou sheet of styrene. And I just go to a place like Tap Plastics. You can buy them in 4x8 sheets. At the place I go to, they have it in 5x10. And they're like 10 or 12 bucks for a sheet. And I get a couple of sheets and then I just cut them up to the size of my workbench. And then if I need to replace them because I spilt crap over them, I just roll them up, throw them out, and put a new piece down. And over that, I usually use a self-healing mat and always have a piece of glass handy. I've said this many times, always using a sharp X-Acto knife. It's much safer to use a sharp blade than it is a dull blade. With a dull blade, you tend to push a lot harder instead of letting the blade do the work for you. And usually that's when you get into accidents like cutting yourself. One of the best blades that you can find and use are these number 11 X-Acto blades called the Z series. They are supposedly laser honed, but man, are they sharp and do they last? And they're not much more than regular blades. Sprue cutters. Oh man, here's another tip. A lot of times we'll use an X-Acto knife to cut off a piece from a sprue, and you'll slip and cut yourself. Buy yourself a pair of Xeron cutters. I found these little sort of diagonal cutters as well, but then get yourself a true sprue cutter. On the right, you can see they have a flush cut here, and they're great for doing stuff like nut bolt washer castings where you've got that little fine piece. The other thing is modeling squares. You know, a big square like this is great for doing sort of regular stuff around the house. But this is what's called a thin square. And you can see the difference. The thickness here is about 3/4, and this is maybe about 1/4 inch. And what happens is then the blade will actually sit on your material, where here, this is way up in the air. And you can buy them in different sizes. Micromark actually has them. I've even gone to taking brass stock and made my own because the material is so thin and I want to make sure I have a nice sharp square piece. NMRA track gauge. Everybody should have an NMRA gauge. I don't care what scale you're in. They're available pretty well. Something that's been relatively new, if you don't have one, I would suggest you get it. This is the bigger conformance piece now. Your standard gauge will just snap right in. And this now for modern equipment is this clearance that you need for doing stuff like big auto racks. If you're in you know, modern stuff, this is the N scale version, and the N scale one just fits right in there. So if you're doing modern stuff, get a hold of the NMRA and order one of these because it's well worth it. Everybody should have these truck cleaners. Now, this is an HO, but they actually will work for other scales. They're very sharp, and they are the width of basically an axle. And you pop them in, you take your wheel out, you pop them into the journals, give it a little twist, this little rubber piece, and it will clean out that journal box. You'd be amazed at how much crap is in those journals, and prevents your trucks from rolling well. The other thing, and I kind of thought, oh, this is kind of a goofy thing, but I bought one anyway from Micromart. This thing really works. These tines go between the wheel and the inside of the frame of the journal, and you slide them in. And then as you squeeze it, it gently opens the truck so that the wheel can come out. It really works well. And it's got quite a spread. I don't know, Al, if it would work for the ON3. I'd have to check it actually, but boy, it might be close. It really works well, and you don't have to bend the trucks to get the wheels out as much, and it can save some damage to them. Now, long time ago, we were talking about rail joiners and putting them on. Long time ago, either somebody showed me this or I thought of it, I'm not sure which. I took either a piece of brass square tubing, or it can be round, it doesn't matter. And I take a piece of maybe half-inch rail of whatever gauge that I'm using, and I solder it into the end of this brass piece. Now, what I do, I make a little shoulder when I do it, and then I file off a little bit on an angle so that the rail joiner will slip onto this fairly easily, and opens up the little space for how the rail slides in. Because a lot of times when they come out of the package, they're very, very tight, which is what you want, but you want to be able to open it up slightly so that you can get it on the rail. And then all you have to do is put on the top picture, you can see I've got the rail joiner on there, and you slide it into place. It's really simple, something you can make and cost you nothing. Again, I make a little shoulder here with the solder so that the rail joiner will only go halfway. It won't slide back when you try and push it onto the rail. And a lot of times I will take that rail joiner, slide it onto this piece of rail, and then take it off, flip it around so that I've widened it up just enough that it slips on, but it's not loose enough that will cause any kind of electrical problems. The other thing is, take a small flat screwdriver, and I take a Dremel cutter and I make a notch in it. And then you can actually put it right over the rail, slide that rail joiner anywhere you want. It's a very simple tool. This one is actually one that the N-scale guys were giving out at one point, but I've made lots of them myself. Track gauges, everybody should have track gauges, whether you're using the NMRA one or these. I prefer these a little bit, especially if I'm building track. This is the standard brass 3-point gauge. This is an aluminum one that it's been cut by CNC milling by Fast Tracks. They sell these. And this is also one that he used. He's called the Trifecta. And this is great. I love this third one because it's actually cut out of acrylic. And if you accidentally leave the power on, you're not going to get a short because it can't transmit the power through the acrylic. Now, these are one of the best tools and investments I've ever made. Is you buy one of these point shaping files. Now, Fast Track sells them, but you can actually find them in fishing stores. But you have to watch. They use it for actually sharpening hooks, but you can see it's actually diamond shaped. You can see on the white box there, you can see the diamond shape. Now on the ends or on the tips of the file here, it's actually serrated, so that if you want to clean out a flange weight or something, you can stick that right in to the flange way this way and just file that out nice and clean. It is one of the great tools of all time. Now, some of the fishing ones do not have the serration on the edge, so you have to be a little careful of that. Okay, but I know the ones from Fast Tracks all have that. I always keep, like I think Paul mentioned, I always keep a little Tupperware container, and I've got all my track stuff in here. I don't have to go searching for it. I've got my gauges. I've got stuff to solder with. I've got an extra piece. I usually always have a really good pair of trucks that I can run through on pieces of track to make sure that I don't have any problems with bad track. This is one of my pet peeves. Guys use these track cutters to cut music wire or brass wire, and never ever do that. You just ruin the track cutter. You'll see big dents in them. It is not meant for that. These other Xuron tools, this is really cool. You put in a piece of music wire and you squeeze that. It makes a nice square cut, and the music wire doesn't go shooting anywhere. It holds it. And they're well worth every cent if you're doing a lot of music wire stuff and little things. They're the right tool for the right job. Another thing, we talked about this before, ACC, a lot of guys use the accelerator. Well, it comes with a spray pump. Well, Jesus, you don't want to use that. It goes everywhere and it stinks like hell. Get yourself one of these tools. The tool man sells them. All kinds of guys sell them. And basically, it's just a loop here. And you dip that in. And as you touch it to the model, that fluid will run out by a capillary, all kinds of cupola action will come out and will go into your joint and your ACC will harden up really quick. You can also make one. I just took a piece of dowel. I took a piece of brass wire, drilled a little hole, put a little glue in it. And again, I just took a hammer and flattened one end. And I took that very fine Dremel cutter and I just cut into it. So now I have a U shape there. I don't know if you can really see it in this picture, but it works the same way. You dip it into the liquid. As you touch it, the model, it runs out. Now, real glass needs real cutters. I don't cheap out on this one because the glass is too expensive to be wasted. These are pocket scribes by Starrett, which is a high British manufacturer of industrial metal tools and so forth. And these are great. So this is how it comes. You undo the knurl, pull out the tip, switch it around, put it back in, and this is as sharp as you want to get. And it's a carbide tip. And when you go to cut the glass, you won't have any problem. And as we mentioned once before in one of the shows, you do it very lightly. You don't have to push a lot of pressure because if you do, you'll just split the glass. Now, once you got the glass cut, how do you put it in? Well, this little suction cup is one of the greatest tools ever. So what you do, you have this little suction cup, and it actually comes with about 5 different sizes. So all you do is squeeze the air out of it and push it down onto the glass and let the suction pull the glass right up, and it will hold that forever. And that way you don't get your paws all over the glass. It's easy to put into a window. You don't have to muck with it. Box pliers. This is something that I learned in the real glass business. These are little ones, obviously. I got them at the Toolman or whatever, one of the shows. And there's no serrations on these, and they're perfectly square and flat. And you say, well, why do you need those? Well, if you make a very thin cut on a piece of glass, whether it be real glass or whatever, you can't put enough force on it to make the snap. So by using those little box pliers, you could just grab that little bit of glass that you need and put a little bit of snap on it, and it will snap off. Now the same thing goes for styrene. This is exactly the same thing. So you make your cut, but it's just a little sliver, and it's hard to get your fat fingers, at least mine, in there. And if you use other pliers or something, they're serrated and they'll mark the styrene. So just use these little box pliers, bend them over, and snap it off, and you're good to go. Small applicator bottles. These things I use constantly. I bought a set of 30 of these little bottles. They come with funnels. They come with a cap, and they have this little gizmo here, which goes over the top of the cap. And I put yellow glue in them. I put white glue in them. I use them for sometimes for paints. I'll mix up a thin paint, and I can squeeze it into my airbrush really easy. And you get 30 of these bottles with the caps and everything for like, I don't know, $12 or something. It's like crazy. And that's delivered to your door via Amazon. Everybody should have one of these. These, you know, a lot of guys, you use a steel ruler when they're cutting, but you can slip and cut your finger badly. So this has got a nice straight edge. They come in a variety of sizes. These are great, and you can buy them from Micromart. The ultimate professional sander. Al is on the call, so it's a good thing I put it on here because I don't want him mad at me. If you don't have one of these, get one. They're worth every penny. And if you're doing a lot of woodwork, and you know, even the plaster building that we're doing, you could use this on that without any problem to square things up, and it would work really well. Now these, I don't know how many have ever seen these. These are rubber paint brushes, and they come in all kinds of different angles and stuff. I have had 2 pair of these, and I just love them. I use more and more. I think of projects to use this in. Before we started the show tonight, we were talking about doing sign work. And a lot of problems with signs is that if you put your finger on a sign to push it down onto a building after you put some glue on it, it will actually fold up around your finger. Well, these rubber tips won't do that. And they're great for applying signs. They're great for doing a little stripe. You dip this into the paint, and that's a very sharp edge on this particular one. And you dip it into the paint, and you just have to touch it to whatever you're doing, and you get a nice little line about 1/4 inch. And sometimes that's all you need, and you don't have to fool with paint brushes or nothing. And it's just like a stamp. You just touch it. I can't tell you how many uses I'm developing for these things. And you can buy them on Amazon. I think you get 5 different types for like $7 or something. And that's Canadian. They come in firm, medium, and soft. I suggest the medium one or the firm one is actually a little, the soft is just too soft. Everybody should have a KD trip pin tool. They're just, trip pins are such a pain if they're not set right. And I suggest you can go buy these. You can use pliers, but it's just not the same. You'll break more couplers and damage more engines and cars than what this tool is worth. The other thing that I really, and I always poo-pooed it a bit, was the KD assortment. But if you get some of these crazy cars in HO now and in other things, or if you're scratch building, you need to figure out what is the right KD coupler. This has everything that they make. And if you can't figure out what coupler goes in where, you're going to Sargent. 3M transfer tray. I use this stuff constantly for roof materials, for doing all kinds of stuff. Here's a sign that I printed out on heavy cardstock, and I put it on this this little building, and I did a little bit of weathering, but I have to weather a little bit more of the building before I really get into the weathering. But it is great, that transfer tape, to do that type of work, and you don't have to worry about it, you know, discoloring or mucking up the paper. If you've never heard of these Q Concept Jewelers saws, they are the bomb. I don't know if you know the fellow from, oh gee, this show escapes me now, where they blow everything up and they test all kinds of stuff. Mythbusters. One of the guys on there has started a new show about interesting tools. And he interviewed this guy, and it's just a fantastic tool. It's actually got a cam lever in here. So when you put your jeweler's blade in here, it's like preset, and all you have to do is put the cam up, and it's nice and tight, and you will get no wobble, no nothing. It's great. And why do I like these? Well, when I cut the gaps, I never use a Dremel in any track work. I cut the gaps. You can see the gaps here and here. I use a jeweler's saw, and you'll never, you won't see that big gap, and you'll never have problems with your track work. They're not cheap, but boy, they're worth every penny. All right, so that's a few tools that I've used. If you're confused, please give me a shout, and I'll be happy to help you out where you can get them, or why you need them, and we'll go from there. But that's just the first installment. If Jim invites me back, we can do a bunch more. I've got probably another 30 or 40 different tools I could show you, and go from there.
Hey,
Thanks so much.
Clark. Question from YouTube. Is there a possibility to get a list of the recommended tools in the description for YouTube?
I could probably come up with one. I don't have one handy. So we can, maybe what I'll do, I'll send it to Jim, and he can put it up on the site maybe.
All right. Yeah, it's a guy from Dan Cooks, which I guess is a fan of you.
Oh, okay. Well, I usually don't have a lot of fans, so thanks, Dan.
We won't hold that against him, Clark.
Okay.
Listen, I appreciate it. I appreciate it. So thank you so much for tonight, and you are invited back, and look forward to more information from you as soon as you get through with this downtown deco.
Yeah. Matter of fact, yesterday I arrived the new Magic camera. So even though I've taken pictures on how to paint it, I'm hoping we'll go through a PowerPoint and then maybe try out a little live demo.
That's fantastic. Look forward to it. Thanks so much.
You're welcome.
Now I want to turn to Chris Course and let him be responsible for doing some of the My Bill and talk about the raffle that he's going to hold. And this My Build is a special one. And it only is for the people that built along with Greg Cassidy and Chris in the building of Chris's Conowingo model. And Greg just finished it on the last show. So we're really pleased to do this tonight, and hope that a lot of you that built along and got the kit from Chris show us what your model turned out to be. So Chris, I'll turn it over to you.
Alrighty, thanks, Jim. I'm not sure I want to be called responsible, but okay, or held responsible. But anyway, we'll go ahead and get started here. We've got some really cool stuff to show. Actually, I think I'm just going to go ahead and share this with you. We've been talking about this, but check this out.
Hey, Greg, take her up. It's a big one. Breath. This is too big to fit. Coming down. Oh no.
It's not over yet.
I need a drink.
Yeah, unfortunately, the buffering is
It's
not,
terrible.
yeah.
That's why I did it upstairs versus downstairs. Come on.
My gray house build required a few extra components to move things around, servos and motors, and something to control it in terms of an Arduino. Here you see the Arduino outside. Relative to the size of the gray house. The gray house roof were held on with magnets because you had to be able to take things apart in a modular way in order to fiddle with things. You can see the magnets in the corners holding on to some steel shim stock in the roofs. And here are all the components, piece by piece, that actually fit all inside the gray house. It was a lot of fun.
All right, so apologize for the buffering issues. Let's see. Let's go back a little bit here. What we've got, of course, you saw this slideshow before, I think, from last week. Unfortunately, I couldn't be here. I had to do some crisscrossing of the country. Let's see. In the bottom right corner is the kit we're going to give away. It's actually just one of those little buildings, and the neat thing about this is that depending on what I have laying around is what goes in the kit. So it may look like the one on the left, or it may look like the one on the right. And then there was the build up that I meant to do for you guys, but I apologize for that, for Jeff's wonderful video there. We got this from Jeremy Wyant, who built the O-scale version. I thought it came out pretty neat. Like looks like the old greaser sitting out in front, just hanging out.
Yeah, I hired him to finish the front porch, and it never happened. And he didn't put the back steps on either, or the stovepipe. So what are you going to do?
Yeah.
It's pretty plain vanilla, but it was fun to do it. And I kind of think I got the tar paper idea. I started getting that. It's the first time I've ever done it. I haven't glued on the roof yet because I'm not sure about lighting in the future. So I probably want to make a removable roof. I don't know if I'll do magnets like Jeff did or not. Maybe I'll just mail it to Jeff and have him figure it out.
Oh, thanks so much.
No, this is a great starting kit and stuff. I got to learn a lot of new materials and stuff. I did the foundation this morning, the bricks from rail scale models. That went okay. And just buying everything new, all the glues and paints and everything. So it's a lot to start to accumulate and remember what you're doing. So that is a good start. Good.
Yeah, that's what. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I as I said, I need to practice some weathering and stuff. So I got to get some pastels or something and start playing around with that and some washes and stuff. But so many options, it's kind of hard to know where to get started. But I kind of get the sense that you can just keep trying stuff and it doesn't really matter. If you mess it up a little bit, you just, hey, do some more work on it. That's all. So anyway, it was fun. Good project. Thanks for doing this.
Yeah, that's it was Jim's idea. I think it came out a lot of good ideas with what people have done with these things. It's pretty neat. That's one thing that's pretty nice too, is that I see you've got the it looks like Deco Art paint back there, which you can get at Walmart for like $1 a piece. I mean, this hobby is as cheap or as expensive as you want to make it. So that part's really neat, I think.
Yeah, I just happened to stumble across that in a local hardware store and didn't know anything about it. It looked kind of vaguely familiar, but it seems like it works great. I mean, water it down a little bit, and I'm just starting to learn what it means to dry brush and stuff like that. So it'll be fun to play around with them.
Cool. All right. Any questions for Jeremy on what he did?
But I think he's done great, and I'm really enthused to see him getting into it. Jeremy, you're right. If something goes wrong, there's usually 10 ways to work around it, and sometimes your mistakes come out looking better than something you planned.
Yeah, that brings out an entirely different question: is where do I buy O-gauge, O-scale chimneys? I know I saw some, but I can't find them anymore.
Didn't you mean
Bar
like
Mills.
a brick chimney?
Bar Mills
Yeah,
has
brick.
got them.
Which one?
Bar Mills.
Really? Because I thought I went there and they didn't have any like separate parts, but I'll check again.
I think you get about 10 chimneys.
I don't mind.
Hmm.
Okay, thanks.
I know another place where I got a number of O-scale parts like that. I will have to, but I don't remember their name. I do have them bookmarked. I'll look them up and then I'll put it in the chat in a little bit, Jeremy.
That'd be great. Thanks.
All right.
Try an outfit called Rusty Stumps or Rusty Rails. They have some, I think it's Rusty Stumps. I always get confused. Rusty something. I think they have chimneys.
All right. Let's see. I think we kind of skipped over Jeff Bunza. Did anybody have any questions for him regarding his build?
I have to wonder if that was an OSHA approved facility there.
I'm going to try to generate a low resolution video to see if Zoom will take it better than the high resolution video I sent you guys. The one thing I wanted to comment on is that none of the sounds are edited in. In fact, nothing is edited in. What you see is what actually occurs when you run the animation with the house. So the light, sound, movement, synchronization, and story all come together for that animation. I was actually shocked that I could pull it off in such a tiny house in HO scale.
That's
I
pretty
think
neat.
it's fantastic. I think you've opened up a whole, almost a whole different area for the hobby for a lot of people.
I did post the link to the high resolution video if you want to play it in your browser. If you have a high speed connection, it'll play, or you can download it. But it's 86 megabytes, so I'm going to try real fast before Chris is done to come up and put out a low res version, and maybe we could play it and it'll actually play.
Okay.
All right, cool. Oh, it looks like that's
Or if you, or Jeff, if you don't get it done by then, just let me know and we can play it toward the end of the show.
Okay.
all right. Yeah, let's see. We've got
The key is just have somebody play it who's got more bandwidth.
Yeah.
That's the bandwidth competition you have between downloading the video to your computer and then streaming it back out and getting all the videos back down. So anybody who's got a higher speed bandwidth can probably play the high resolution.
Right. All right. Let's see. Next up, we have Mike Werman. You ready, Mike?
Yes, I'm ready.
All right.
I don't know if I'm going to share screen or if I can just.
Wait a second.
Okay, so right off the bat, this decides to die on me. All right, this is my, can we see this? Is this good?
Yes.
All right, you can see at the back, and let me zoom this up so you can see it better. It's off about 1/8 of an inch. I don't know. Try this.
I gave you permission for sharing if you want, if you have it on your computer.
I don't have it on the computer.
Ah,
Okay, but I just thought I'd do this. You see how it's off by 1/8 of an inch. Okay, so with Craig's help, he says you set the house back and change the front a little bit. So you can tell by the little odd 1/8 inch of board there at the end of the porch. That was my modification. I cut away some of the brickwork of the foundation and put the boards in place. And on the other side, of course, the steps hide most of that. So you can't really tell that there's a problem. So that's how I took care of that. So anyway, here's my buggy. And you can tell the railing is sloped to one side. It's like the old place is slowly starting to fall apart. And then I did manage, let me see this better. Let's get my fingers out of here. Make an HO chimney. If that looks right to you.
Yeah. Nice job, Mike.
That looks fantastic, Mike. Yeah, I was wondering how you were going to get around that, and my God, you can't tell at all, and that looks fantastic.
Thank
Really
you.
good.
yeah,
Works
very
really
nice.
And it was fun. It was fun.
So what did you make the chimney out of?
Well, don't look too closely. If you're a rivet guy, you'll appreciate it. I actually made it out of, I had plastic sheets of S-scale brick.
Okay.
And I built it up around a wood stock and glued it in place. And then a little strip of brick along the top for the cap. And then, weathered it up.
Looks like it's been there for years.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? It's like, why do all these buildings look so old? Yeah, I really appreciate this one. This looks, I think, pretty good considering this is my first HO building.
All right, that's great. I really appreciate you building along with Greg. Thank you so much for participating.
You are welcome.
All righty. Anybody have any questions for Mike? All right, that comes to the end of the people that have contacted us ahead of time. Somebody else have a kit to share?
I've got my video ready for you.
Oh, okay, cool.
Can I share the screen?
1 second. All right, you should be able to share now.
Hopefully this will work.
Hey, Greg, take her up. It's a big one. Mm. 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 Chris, this is too big to fit. Coming down. Mm. Mm. Oh no! I need a drink.
My gray house build required a few extra components to move things around, servos and motors, and something to control it in terms of an Arduino. Here you see the Arduino outside relative to the size of the gray house. The gray house roof were held on with magnets because you had to be able to take things apart in a modular way in order to fiddle with things. You can see the magnets in the corners holding on to some steel shim stock in the roofs. And here are all the components piece by piece that actually fit all inside the gray house. It was a lot of fun. Did that come through okay?
Yes, it did.
Okay, great.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah, it was a quarter of the bandwidth.
So
Yeah,
Jeff,
Craig.
Jeff, I have a question. When you build a structure and you have to put all that animation and stuff inside it, I suppose you'll have to possibly do any kind of bracing or anything else it might need that doesn't interfere with what you're doing, but strengthens it in the way that you might be pulling on it or anything like that.
That's absolutely correct, especially if you're going to push or pull something, it gets to be a real big issue. And the funny thing, I used a different approach with this one. You remember I reduced the room size that we lit to the minimum. And I added component by component. So the door was the next problem. There's only 2 prototype doors for the upstairs loft access for the hoist. And one is divided and opens inwards, and the other one slides. So I picked the sliding one. And then the issue was, well, how do you conceal the sliding one and deal with the mechanism? So the mechanism is off to the side, and I built 2 rails to slide the door. And then from there, I went to the figure, and I knew I wanted to have the figure yank back on the rope and move each time to show, you know, the incremental coming up and dropping. So that was a servo because that was the easiest thing to deal with there. And then the other problem was the pickup spool for the rope had to go in 2 directions, and that was a little tiny motor with a spool that I built, and that had to be mounted on the back of the room divider that we had, right? Now, the interesting thing was that the little servos I had, I thought I was going to use a linear servo. I couldn't find them. So I had to use the smallest regular servo I could find, which is about the half the size of a 9G as a regular servo, called a 4G servo, interestingly enough. Anyway, when I put each one in place, I did it incrementally. And then I found out that I was just about a quarter of an inch away from the wall. So I decided to use a different technique than I usually did. And I actually used a friction wedge with balsa wood, which is you can actually squeeze it to get it smaller, right? So it actually has some elasticity to the wood. So I used that as a wedge to hold the front end. And then I needed a place to put the motor for the spool. Well, I used a backdrop block, a light block to the rear. And then I built a channel to have that slide up in to hold the motor and then connect to the front. And then there was another little piece that I found out if I put that between the block and the end of the building, that would hold it in place by friction. So that whole thing completely comes apart without any screws, no magnets, and it's all held in place with friction caused by correct size of pieces of balsa wood. And I actually think the balsa wood is a great thing because it absorbs a little bit of the sound and the vibration as well. So it, strangely enough, it worked out.
Well, that's great. Really is great. Well, Chris, how many, do we have more people?
That's the end of who we had signed up in advance, but I think now we can open it up to whoever else has built the kit.
Okay.
So who's do we have any takers? All right.
Well, it seems like that may be it. So if you're ready to do the raffle, let's get on with that.
All right, sounds like a plan. So I've got them here. Got Mike Werman and Jeremy Wyant in the mix here. So let me see if I can find something to put them in. Oh, one of them fell out, so we'll go with that one.
So maybe you should put. Hey, Chris, turn around and put it in the box that Jeff Bunza dropped and all that, and then that'll mix it up.
There might be pieces of glass in there.
Yeah, you never know.
How much China was destroyed in that?
And I'll never tell.
All right, so congratulations, Jeremy Wyant. I'll get one of the little shanty kits out to you here shortly.
Jeremy is an O scaler, right?
Yeah,
Jeremy, congratulations.
we're gonna drag him in HO yet.
Chris, thank you so very much for doing this. This has really been special. And Greg, you too. Both of you, you were the guinea pigs. You got this all started, and I can't thank you, both of you enough. Thanks so very much.
Well, thanks for giving us the opportunity, Jim. And I honestly am saying I'm looking forward to the following ones coming along. I've got 2 of the kits already. I've built one. I'm going to start on the second one. And I think this is a great idea.
Well, that's great. Thank you so much, both of you. Well, now I'd like to turn to our featured modeler tonight, Martin Breckrick, MMR, who is the editor of O-Scale Trains magazine. I've heard of that magazine from somewhere. And he's an exceptional modeler. He's fantastic. He's been on the show many times. He's shown us his scratch building capabilities. And Martin, I appreciate you coming back and doing this. And I'll turn it over to you, sir.
Okay, thank you, Jim. I've got way too many slides, so let me see if I can get this going as fast as possible here. Who's that? Come on, there you go. Is that working?
Yes, sir.
Perfect. Okay, who I am. I'm a lot of different people. I wear a lot of hats, and this isn't even all of them. I've got a bunch of things with the NMRA. As Jim said, I'm the editor of the magazine. I'm also the editor of this little publication, which is brightening my day since I just got 80 pages of galley proofs a few hours ago for the next issue to review, which is a good recipe for some serious eye strain. And yeah, I'm retired. Most people tell me I'm doing it all wrong. Mainly my son. That was the first thing came out of his mouth. Retirement, you're doing it wrong, Dad. You're not supposed to be doing all these things. But I told him, if you don't do things, you don't survive for very long. Okay, modeling interests. Cumberland Valley Railroad, a little bit off the beaten path. I'm a little further back in time than most people. This is pre-1920. And I only model the one little tiny branch, and I very freely adapt to whatever I feel like when I say I model the South Mountain branch. I also have an interest in the Chambersburg, Greencastle, and Waynesboro Railway. That's a traction line, also known as the Come, Go, and Wait. Had kind of a limited life. And other interests, pickles and vinegar. I don't know why, but I always have had an interest in that part of model railroading. And I even have a near a complete set of that. There was a special interest group years ago that issued a newsletter called Pickles in Miniature. And if you've got any interest in this area, you should get copies of those. Yeah, I write the traction column for O-Scale Trains, so I'm supposed to have a traction interest. The story behind that is I volunteered to write a column or two to fill in, and then I had the job offered to me, so I took the job. And that ultimately has ended up with me being the editor of the magazine. So, you know, there is danger in agreeing to do things. You get sucked right into something. Maintenance away. I love building maintenance away cars. If I'm not building a maintenance away car, there's something wrong. I'm sick, ill, can't get out of bed, or something is just bad has happened. I always have at least one of them sitting around in construction. Scratch building, almost anything and everything. It's rare I build a kit. It does happen. It's happened twice this year, I think. Yeah, twice this year now. So we'll keep moving. Cumberland Valley Railroad, South Mountain Branch. Little tiny piece of it. South Mountain, you know, the Cumberland Valley ran from Martinsburg, West Virginia to Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, started in 1831. So it's one of the oldest railroads. There's a standard book is from West Haffer, the history of the Cumberland Valley Railroad. And this little stretch I like to model spun off right here south of Chambersburg, Pennsylvania. Whoops, let's go back. Ran over here to Williamson. I always like to go to Williamson because there was a nice bridge there. And when I was young, my grandfather would take me there to go fishing. Went up in here. It says Penn Central because this is an old map. They got absorbed by Pennsylvania, which became Penn Central, which became. Main line's still there and very busy. You go over here to Laymasters. Laymasters is one of my favorite little towns because that's where the train actually continued to run up until when I was about 12, 15 years old, when they finally took the tracks out and stopped running a train up there. So you can still see the roadbed here. It's very clear. Everything after that is all gone. So this route into Mercersburg is gone. Everything up in across Route 30 up to Fort Loudon's all gone. Just about all gone. It's not quite all gone. The station in Fort Loudon is still there, and it's the town library. It's beautiful. They've really done a beautiful job of preserving it. The station in Mercersburg is a pizza restaurant. And up near at the very end, Richmond Furnace had yards, fueling stations, freight and passenger stations, operations, yards. It was a lot more extensive than this map has on it. If you find the old Clyde Lachlan real picture postcards of the Cumberland Valley Railroad, well, if you could afford to find them, last time I saw one, they were in $80 to $150 a card. So not a cheap proposition, but you can see these fantastic complex station area they had up here and a very large ice pond and ice house. So they actually harvested ice, stored it here, brought it back down and sold it in Chambersburg and elsewhere. I don't model all this. I would just be crazy. I have a very small room. It's about, there's no scale on this. Well, it's about 16 by 11 feet, maybe 17. I don't think I've ever really actually measured it exactly. It's whatever it became when I built the walls. I deliberately made it small to impose limits on myself because if things will fill a space. So I made the space tight, small, limited. I can't run big engines. Of course, the Cumberland Valley did not have any big engines. The biggest engine they had was a 280. Okay, so this was the original plan, which did not happen exactly as you see it. This engine house is actually over here and the yard is behind it. There's only one track in here. And I'll show you something more interesting about that. It says town site, but the town's actually over here. None of these tracks are here. So it was a quick sketch and it's pretty close, sort of. Some of this is the same, some of it isn't. You might get to see some of that if I talk fast. Okay, so that site that I said was a town site, or these tracks aren't here. One track's still there. That's what's there. That whole area is a lift out. And this is pretty good size. This is, that's an 18-inch ruler. So this is about 30 by 20, 24 inches. It's about 2 by 3 feet. It's a big lift out. I have 3 of these lift outs that are identical, one of which is on the layout and fully scenic. The other 2 are waiting their turn when I get around to it someday when we have a massive snowstorm that doesn't stop for 2 weeks. I may get to it. And this is half of my strip wood back here. That's I don't know how, it may not look that big, but it's a foot deep. And there's another 2 boxes over here, and there's 4 more boxes over here somewhere behind the bandsaw. Okay, pickles and vinegar. My grandmother made pickles. This is I'm claiming that's the reason why I grew up interested in pickles. That, and if you've ever harvested a tractor or trailer load of cucumbers in your youth, you watched your grandmother fill every crock possible in a 3-story house and fill an entire stairwell full of pickles, you sort of got stuck with pickles in your brain. So this is one of my first scratch build cars that I actually wrote an article and got it published in O Scale Trains. This might be the cause of all my problems, in fact. Willingness to do that, sending an article off. Sending articles off for publication was a way of life for me, but not in the model railroading world. So when I did it to a national magazine, I thought I was being daring, and little did I know how much trouble I would get into. Okay, so that's one scratch build car, and I had to have 2 of these. So that Pickles in Miniature newsletter is actually very useful because it gives you full sets of plans and dimensions, and there were actually multiple sizes of these cars. So this is a small car on gallon size. There's the large one. They actually had 2 different sizes. I built these gosh, it must be 200 or 300 years ago. That's what it feels like now. And this is one of the heinous kits that I actually built. It's resin, and it's Rails Unlimited used to make this kit. Extremely difficult to find now. Last one I saw on eBay sold for $180, unfinished. And I thought, well, I sort of lost interest when it broke 50, and I thought that's kind of crazy. But not needing one and not finding that incredibly desirable, I mean, I figured, yeah, I could always just scratch build one, make a copy if I felt like it. So, save the money. It's more fun to scratch build it anyhow. The number of varieties of these cars is the surface is not even scratched at all on what's possible to build in the pickle and vinegar area. There's a great book on this, Vinegar and Pickles in the Midwest or something like that, by David Leader, I'm not sure which. Fantastic book with all kinds of plans in it. And more about the making of vinegar than you will ever want to know in your lifetime. Okay, so you build cars, but where are they going to go? Well, I've decided that lift out is going to have a pickle plant on it. This was the beginning of it. There's the first floor framing. All 2x4s and 4x4s. Some barrels, brass straps soldered together, drilled, and then adding nut bolt and washer rivets. This is a adjacent side building to the main building. I'm just going to zip through this real fast because I know there's about 75 slides just of this sitting somewhere, so I can't begin to go through it. But there's the board and batten. Yeah, make your own board and batten. It's not hard to do. And actually it looks just as good, if not better, than the commercial milled stuff. There's the first floor of the pickle factory. And you have these basins, they're made out of copper foil, and there's drains and there's pumps, and later on there's people, figures, and even cucumbers. You can make cucumbers. It's not hard to do, not no scale, at least. It's not hard to do. So the clapboards are all individual boards. So these are just cut and glued into place, one board at a time. It's slow, it's tedious, and you really get a good nose full of ACC after a while, and you have to stop. It's hard on it. And all that framing I made, well, I covered it up with styrene to make plaster. So the only people who know that there's actually framing inside the walls are you and me. There's the second floor framing. It's a little different, but still 2x4s and 4x4s. Louvers for ventilation. These were a royal pain to put in. Getting all these boards at the same angle, spaced equally, that tests your sanity after a while. And you put the second floor on top of the first floor. Beginning of a chimney over here. Since this is never going to be open, I didn't worry about actually building a chimney all the way down. I cheated. But this actually has a lift out, so I could take this apart. There's lighting and everything in the bottom of it. So now we have people downstairs. Some ladies hard at work sorting out the cucumbers and cleaning them up. This is the back side of the building. This drawbridge door actually works. That's the track side for dropping the cucumbers down into the tanks on the cars. There's the roof, or the beginning of the roof at least. A lot of trusses, a lot of pieces of wood, a lot of roofing, a lot of fun. The only thing that holds the roof on is gravity. There's no magnets. I thought about magnets. It's gravity, because here in each corner, that's a piece of lead. So there's about, I don't know, maybe a pound of lead in this roof. And that's what it looks like after it's done. This is the track side view of it. There's the front side. Lawther's Perfect Pickles. My grandmother's last name was Lawther's. So this is a homage to my grandmother's pickle making yearly adventure, which meant we ate pickles for many, many, many months until another year came by and we had another crop of pickles. And you can't see it over here, but there's actually a crow over here. I usually have a crow in every structure somewhere. Sometimes they're obvious, sometimes they're not so obvious. There's where it is on my layout. So that's on the lift out. You can see right here the little curved edge. So this whole thing lifts out. That whole scene comes out. And if I want to change the scene of my layout, I can lift it out and change it anytime I want. Just unplug it. It takes two people because it's way too heavy and awkward for me to do by myself. But somebody has to go underneath the layout, push it up, I catch it, and try not to drop it and then carry it out of the room. Or at least that's the plan if and when I ever do that. Okay, traction and maintenance away at that intersection. So yeah, I do build trolleys. And this is one of the ones I actually used for motive power for my MMR. Sort of derived from the snow plow that was up at Rock Hill Furnace, all scratch built. This is styrene and brass in the front. So I actually do work in other mediums other than wood. It does happen occasionally. This is a line car. This is the car that I threw away 3 times before I figured out what it was. And I was at a convention and I found a picture in a box of stuff the guy was selling, and it had this platform on top of it. And I said, I know what that car is. I put it in the trash. I wonder if I put it out to be picked up yesterday. It was still in my shop on the floor. Pulled it out. This actually is hinged. It goes up and down. It flattens out. So this is actually a a platform that's movable. So you can push it up, climb up on it, work on the line, put it back down, off you go. I have an interest in resin casting. I kind of forgot to mention that. So I make my own parts a lot, particularly when it's these small cars. So I'm having some fun here with a little tiny car that's very, very much like the old Pitman work trolley, little four-wheel work trolley they sold in for a long time ago in white metal as a kit. Well, I made my own sides. I made a lot of different sides. I made my own ends, and I can cast as many as I want. So there's the basic one sitting on top. That's the Bowser four-wheel drive. And you take these off, and this drops right in on top of this, and off you go. Well, not quite off you go. You might want to paint it and add some things. But there's the basic little work trolley. But not wanting to just have a work trolley, I wanted to have a snow sweeper. So this is all starting with the same basic castings, but all the rest of this is my add-ons. So you build some bottle brush holders and some chain drives and some chains to hold the flanger blades, put some tools on it, some more wire and some cable. We've got a little snow sweeper. Well, another basic one, I put a pantograph on this one because I had pantographs laying around. I just thought, let's be different. And here we have, so I thought, well, let's make a reefer door. Let's put a reefer door into the casting. And on my layout, I actually have a building called Doyle's Ice. So this is the reefer car that picks up the ice and delivers the ice. What they don't know, of course, is by this point, you can see how badly worn this car is. Doyle went out of the ice building business, and they're stuck with a reefer to deliver ice they don't have. A hopper motor. Now, these were real. The trolley companies actually did bring coal downtown into cities because there was no way of getting a steam train downtown to the electrical plants. So the trolleys actually took coal in and hauled the ash back out. And this is a kit bash, scratch build, whatever you want to call it. I started with I think a Weaver 2-bay hopper, but the rest of it's all mine, and a lot of razor saw work to get that to go together. Sprinkler car. Well, you got to keep the weeds down, put some oil out on the road, and you need a car. So we have a nice little steam, gas-powered pump motor, a tank. These are commercial parts here, but the tank is one of mine. And these actually swivel and move around. And the plumbing was a lot of fun to put together, as you might well imagine, getting the valves and union joints all lined up nicely. In addition to crows, I usually have a dog somewhere. I have a dog somewhere. This was an exercise, and I had 3 of these sets of side frames, and I had no idea what to do with them. So I made these 3 cars, which I fondly call Huey, Dewey, and Gort. There's a joke there for anybody who can figure out what it is. But you know, just some basically take the side frames. The rest of it is all scratch built. So we have a water tank. We have 2 guys having a wonderful time relaxing after a hard day at work, and a storage cabinet unit. All 4-wheel drives or 4-wheel trucks. A little crane on the one end of a car. I don't think this is one of my scratch build cars. This might be one of the older All Nation Zimmer kit cars that I scrounged off of eBay once. But they're boring by themselves, so it gets a little extra. It gets a few extra tidbits on it, like the crane and barrels and workspace. I don't have another picture of it, but there's a whole work table over here. This is the most recent trolley I've built. This is the tank car trolley. And this was another interesting adventure. The doors with these are sliding doors. There's full interiors on here. There's more room in the back here to put more things in it. Tanks actually piece of plumbing. More plumbing. Just cut it up and glue it together. And lest anybody think otherwise, we do harry passengers occasionally. It does happen. It's not just a freight line. Every now and then we'll run passengers. This is actually a Lakeshore Electric LaBelle kit, which was the third car for my motive power. And something not seen too commonly, I take off from the Piedmont Northern early BBBB box motor. So I basically stole a design from Piedmont Northern and built my own version of it for the CG&W. There are two sets of drives in this thing. These two trucks are powered. The rest aren't. That was an adventure in articulation, to say the least. Maintenance of way. Just go to straight maintenance away for a while. So here's my crane car. I had a lot of fun. Like I said, I just sorted through 60 boxes of cars on the floor of my office to decide which ones were the keep and which ones were the sell. Well, about a third went into the sell pile, and 15 of the rest were all maintenance of way. So I don't kid when I say I'm always building one. It's sort of compulsive. If I'm not building one, I'm not a happy boy. So you can see lots of castings and extras and odds and ends, and yes, a dog. The tender car, obviously two guys having a lovely argument about something while a crow overlooks them and says, it's like, what in the world are these two guys going on about now? But this is all scratch built. This is another scratch built car. I love outside braced cars. I just think they look cool. So whenever I can, it's an outside brace car if I can sneak it in somehow. This is a blacksmith car. Just wanted to build it to see if I could do it. This is a scratch built tank. Well, everything's scratch built on it, actually. I think there's one commercial thing in here. It might be the hearth. The rest of it's all, this is copper and brass over a wood form that's all soldered up. Yeah, you can see. Better picture. I actually have one of these. I took an order for one of these for somebody about a year and a half ago, and it's still sitting on my bench. Thinking I might get to it another 6 months with a little bit of luck. This is why I sort of stopped doing custom work for others, is that it's not fun. And you have to meet deadlines, and you're working for somebody else, and somebody else gets to tell you, well, could you weather that a little differently? Like, right, thank you. Where were you 2 days ago when I was starting to weather it? Okay, so I don't recommend custom building unless you're a glutton for pain, or they pay you an awfully lot of money. Scrap metal car just was fun to build. Got rid of all the scrap out of my shop on the workbench. All this extra tubing and sprues and junk and whatever. This little crane over here is just made out of some 125 rail. It actually pivots and there's a chain on it. This thing actually, the wheel actually works. This guy does not work very much. He sits down way too much. Saw sharpening car. I've always toyed with building a logging line just for the fun of it. It is still in the planning stage. Someday I'll get to it, but at least I'll have a place to sharpen the saws. Okay, a side door A-frame gondola. This is derived from an article from Wayne Wesolowski, which was a really fun thing to build. A bit of a challenge, getting the doors made. They don't open on this one, they will on the next one. But getting this A-frame system, I cut his plans down about 8 feet in O scale because I just wanted a shorter car. It was a lot of fun to build. And I think it makes an interesting looking car too. This is a snow spreader car. This is actually a 2-foot car, 2-foot scale car that I scaled up the standard scale because I wanted one. And I wasn't going to get one otherwise. So let's take the 2-foot plans, scale them the standard, and start building. So it's all scratch built. This is all brass. These wings pivot. There's a little blocking piece that drops in with some pins. I rarely put these in because once you drop them, you run around like a mad nut looking for the thing on the floor. They're little tiny pins. It's like Lincoln pin couplers. Looking for the pin is no fun once you've dropped it. But it was another fun car to build. A rectangular water tank car. Why? Because I saw a picture of one and I thought, I bet I can build one of those. It was fun. Tool and water cars. Gosh, I probably built 4 more of these than you're seeing here. And I gave at least 2 of them away. Every now and then, if I don't like the car, or I just said, well, I build 2 of them, and I'd call somebody up. You said, you want one of these? Nobody says no, but I kind of always wonder, what did they do with it after I gave it to them? This is actually a tie as a rail car too. So there's actually a layer underneath here. It's full of 125 rail. So it's actually way over NMRA spec on rate. Actually, it's 172 rail because I had some steel 172 rail. And it's like, here's a good way to get rid of it. It'll give the car weight. It'll make it look like there's rail inside of it. Perfect. Everything goes away. This is my one and only, as far as I know, prototypical car in maintenance of way. Louisville and Nashville had this car. Didn't say CVNM 41 on it. It said L&N. The plans for this are in Craftsman somewhere in the last 50, 60 years. What caught my eye was this funky tank. I said, I got to build that. I got to have, this has got, because you got to make all the boards wider at the bottom than they are at the top when you build a truncated cone. This is going to be a fun challenge. And it was. And building each one of these bands is a different size, and you got to make the band the right size so it goes down your truncated cone the right distance and stops. Those are brass. So this is this was actually my one prototypical car for getting my car certificate for my MMR. The other 7 were all freelance. So, every time I hear somebody say, oh, you've got to build prototypical cars. You've got to have a right prototype. You got to build. I was like, no, you don't. I just don't. No, not true. Been there, done that. Not true. It's not easy, but it's not, it doesn't have to have a prototype. Okay, back to my layout. This is one end of the town of Laymasters, my version of Laymasters. They had a dirt road in the teens. Actually, those roads were dirt a lot longer than the teens. Breck builds better brooms. This is a scratch built building. Crow on top. What else? Where else? There actually was such a business. I actually have the rubber stamp that my great grandfather used in the business. It's sitting over here on the shelf in my office. So, and it actually looks something like this sign in layout and lettering. Various vehicles, structures. These 2 are kits. That's a kit. That's the tower house from Branch Line. There's all kinds of interesting oddball things in this town, though. I don't know how many pictures I have of Laymasters, though. Well, there's that. This is the Grace, the tower house. This is the Grace L. Ferguson Home for Wayward Girls in Finishing School. And you can see over here one of the wayward girls. There are several of them. About the layout, much to the distress of, or around the house, much to the distress of my wife at one point in time. Of course, the ever watchful crow on the roof. The mortician's shop across the street, which of course is next to the church. So it's, it's a one-stop business. You stop in at see Grace L. Ferguson, go to church, get planted the next day. You're all set. There's Doyle's Ice. He's out of business as an ice guy, selling ice. The whole back of this is actually full of scrap materials. Corn crib full of corn. This is actually a scratch built corn crib. It's all individual boards. You make corn out of rice. Just put it in a jar with yellow food coloring, shake it up and let it sit for a week or so. Strain it out. You've got corn. It's pretty close to O-scale corn too, actually, if you use the right kind of rice. Don't ask what kind is the right kind. I don't know. It was what we had in the house. Another scene. This is, you can see where Doyle's Ice is. The road coming in. Two guys with wagon loads of cucumbers. This is the milk station. That's a scratch-built station. Another crow. There are a lot of crows in this county. Rest assured, I know that personally. I have 35 acres of land at the northern end of Franklin County, up from Richmond Furnace, or we have crows. And we have stones and rocks. And I was telling the Amish across the street the other day that our best crop in this county are stones. He thought that was pretty funny. Amish have a good sense of humor. This was timely. I just added these in. Given Clark's tools segment, my shop has some unusual tools in it. This is a 4-inch or 2-inch or 3-inch or whatever inch you feel like, if you can find the belt sander, upright belt sander that my grandfather made. And I said, I'm keeping this. And it's very cool. I use this quite a lot with models. It's very, very handy. The only thing I've ever done to it is I put a new cord in right here. This is a little Meccano, whatever brand, variable drill press, variable speed drill press. You dial in the speed you want up here. I have 2 of these actually. I never used the second one. It's on the floor over here in this corner. This will chuck down to a number 80 and up to a 1/4 inch. I use this thing almost every day. And it was being thrown out when my father-in-law left Leeds and Northrop. They were throwing everything into a dumpster, many dumpsters. And he salvaged these for me and said, hey, do you want one of these? Yeah. Well, I'm not that stupid. I mean, I'll take one of those. He had a second one. I said, well, I'll take that one too. Who knows? And here's a lamp, just sort of like what Clark was showing there earlier. It comes around and totally flexible. That's actually out of a patient space at the hospital that my father used to be the president of. So I have different tools back here on the wall that you're not going to find used for building models too often. Not too many people work with wheelwright's tools to make wagon wheels full scale. I actually do know how to use all those tools. My grandfather taught me. That was a painful couple of summers. Served me well nonetheless. And of course, we have the emergency backup drill press. Clark can come by and turn the crank on it while I drill stuff if he wants. This will keep you busy. It's in perfect working order. I got this at my great uncle's estate of sale. I was out in the yard. The auctioneer was selling this, and I figured, oh, the Amish are going to buy this. They didn't want to have anything to do with it. And $12 later, it was my problem. And I took it completely apart, put it back together, just wiped it down with oil, and that's the way you see it right now. It works perfectly fine. Hey, I'm done. And I'll probably have another Minutes Away card build next week for you, Jim.
Fantastic. I look forward to it.
So we'll stop there. I don't know if I got questions or not.
I'd like to say, one, no, I'm not coming over to help you. But two, I love old tools like that. And you know what? Sometimes they work better than anything.
Oh, I have all kinds of old tools. My grandfather was a tool collector, and he used them all, and he taught me how to use them. Up on the up on the wall opposite, well, right angles to that, there's a left-handed broad axe. My grandfather was left-handed. In fact, both sets of my grandparents were left-handed. My parents were left-handed. My daughter is left-handed, and I'm ambidextrous. So I got taught how to use that broad axe left-handed. And I'll tell you, that is work.
Yeah.
And when you want to square up a piece of black locust with a broad axe, you better have a strong back and a weak mind, because it's going to take you a while and you are going to suffer. And, when you're 17, that's a good age for suffering.
Let me ask you this.
Yes, sir.
You mentioned that you were an editor of some magazine or something. I forget the name of it. Something to do with the hobby. Something.
Scale trains.
And, a lot of people, I think, would write articles for magazines if they thought that they had a snowball chance of getting it printed. So is there any option, any possibility that any old scalers out there?
Absolutely. That's if I had that last slide, I don't know if I could. Well, it had the contact info. Just go to the website and contact me. I'm not hard to find. In fact, I'm painfully easy to find. It's frightening.
What kind of articles, if any, are you looking for, Martin?
Anything that you have made, how I made, fill in the blank. I don't care if it's a structure, steam engine, diesel, scenery, freight cars. Doesn't really matter. That's our core area right there, making stuff. And I'll tell you, and if you've got a layout you want me to publish, now's the time to get a hold of me. No lollygagging or dawdling or any of those other things. Don't do that. Contact me right now. I'm low on layouts, and we feature a layout. We try to feature a layout in every single issue of the magazine. And
I got another question for you.
Yes, sir.
I'm an O-scale traction guy.
Yes.
Can I get my list on your giveaway program when you want to give away one of your scratch-built cars?
Probably. There's no reason why not. I honestly, I have 3 structures sitting over here that I'm going to give away in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, when I go up to the Strasburg meet in the O-scale Strasburg meet in Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
I have 3 structures that I'm going to hand to people who have never seen them. They don't. Well, no, the one guy has seen. John Dunn has seen his structure, but the other 2 guys have not seen their structures, and I've not shown them to anyone. So they're going to get something. They're going to get a surprise. And it's not the first time I've done this. I built a workshop structure for Joe Faircobe. Oh gosh, this goes back 7, 8 years. He had no idea I'd built it. And right before maybe it was about 8 years ago, right before the meet broke up and people were starting to pack up, I went over to him and said, "Hey Joe, you need one of these." And he's heard that about 4,000 times from people trying to sell him something. And he's like, "Oh God, what do you got? What do you got? What do you want? What are you going to do to me now?" Because every now and then I would get him, push something at him. And I pulled this thing out of the bag, because I had it in a brown paper bag, subtle. I said, "Here you go, Joe, you need this." And he nearly fell out of the chair he was in. I said, "Yeah, it's all yours. Take it." And, I wasn't the editor at the time, but the then editor and owner was there at the same time. He thought that, it was just like, we had a really good time laughing about him, watching him just stare at it for about 20 minutes before he figured out that he'd been given something just because he was a nice guy. So I kind of spread this around when I find people at these shows. People, you never know. I might just drop a structure with that has signage on it that has your name on it right in your lap. It happens.
Let me ask you this: you heard of a company called the Leadville Shops?
Yeah, I've heard of them.
Have you built one of their model cars?
No.
Okay.
I don't know. I know the name. I don't know the products.
You know, Jim, I think Dylan's familiar with them. I think he brought them to the not them, but brought their name to the show at one point.
I've heard it here once or twice, but I know it from somewhere
Actually,
else as well.
I know the owners, if that's helpful. What's the question, Jim?
I just found them. I'm really impressed with them. I'm going to write an article about them for my series in both S scale and O scale, and I've invited them to be the guest on one of these shows, like Martin was. I'm really impressed with the detail that I think I see on their products, and the research that they have done to develop the plans and to develop the cars that they have. To me, that's really, it was really just outstanding and something far and above what I would normally think about from a car kit manufacturer. And I'm thinking about asking them if I can find an O scaler or an S scaler that wants to build one of their cars. I'm going to try to ask them if they would be interested in doing one of the build along sessions, because I really think that I think they're unique as a car manufacturer. I was really impressed with what I think I understand about them and what I talked to a couple of people after I found them, and they were very responsive to me when I said, would you be interested in this and this and so forth. So I'm encouraged by that. But then I started thinking, because I'm trying to start filling in the build along series now for the fall of this year, because I'm not going to do them after July and or June, July, that kind of thing in the summertime. So I thought, well, I'll start again maybe late August, September, something like that. And I've got Bill Davis and Rail Scale Models doing one for me in September. And I thought, well, let me see about Leadville. And that's why that was my question. If I can find a modeler to link with them that wants to build one of their cars, either an S scale or an O scale modeler.
Right. Well, the them in them is the gentleman's name is Bill Meredith. He is a denizen of our friends to the north there in Canada. He is a meticulous researcher and modeler. He himself is an SN3 modeler, but he provides his kits in all three of those scales.
Yeah.
And so if you contact Bill, he's got friends. He knows somebody who would build along. And I can highly recommend his products. They are absolutely outstanding. They're very thoughtful in how they're designed, and they build into very, very accurate models.
That's the kind of sense that I got from it. And I was amazed at the level of research that apparently he goes into to produce the plans and produce the models that he puts out. I was really impressed with that when I read it, and that's why I brought it up tonight, to find out if other people had experience building the models and that kind of thing. But I corresponded with Bill. I didn't know his last name, but he did respond to me when I sent him an email. So I will ask him about finding somebody. Thank you.
Yeah, and I see my buddy Mark Lewis posted, and this is correct. Leadville Shops and Leadville Designs are not the same. Leadville Shops, as a business doesn't really exist anymore.
Yeah.
The shops ceased to exist when the guys that bought San Juan Details bought San Juan and Grant Line, and they kind of split the sheets there. And Bill has Leadville Designs, and the other guys are off doing the San Juan and the old Grant Line stuff.
Chris, was one of those other guys Doug Junda?
Yes, yeah. Doug is the primary now with San Juan. That's correct.
Okay,
And-
that's
and
what I
it is-
thought.
And Bill did respond to me with Leadville Designs. I keep thinking Leadville Shops because that's how I found them.
Right, and that's not wrong, but it's just not. They've
Yeah.
evolved. Just like San Juan is no longer San Juan Models. They're San Juan Details, and
Yeah. Yeah.
That looks like a fun kit to build.
Which one?
Their stuff is fun.
Looking at the Leadville Designs bunk. No, it's a maintenance away car. They got a maintenance away bunk car.
Oh yeah.
I was impressed when I went to their website.
I mean,
And,
what else would I build? God.
He's got.
Tim, I think you found your modeler.
I don't know. Well, that's why I kind of brought it up. I'm looking for an O scaler or an S scaler.
I'm only stacked up with 10 or 15 kits to build for review, but what's another one?
That's why I'm not volunteering. My progress is flipping slow anymore.
Well, as I used to tell my postdoctoral students, sleep is overrated.
Yeah. Well, Martin, I'll tell you what. Let me contact Bill and propose this to him, and see what his interest is. And if I can, I'll try to schedule it to start in September. Would that work for you?
Oh, I'll be fine by September.
Okay, that's great.
I'll have a different 15 kits stacked up in front of me by September.
I got you. I'm just,
Oh yeah, well just let him know that I'm the editor of O-Scale Trains though, and I may or may not actually write an article about doing it too.
Well,
he may get hit from 14 angles at the same time.
My golly, I've already talked to him about doing the article, putting it in my series for this other magazine that I write.
There you go.
And so, if you put him in yours, I got no problem with that, because you're going to be writing about stuff about him that I'm not going to be writing
We won't
about.
overlap. We
No.
won't overlap. I wouldn't worry about it.
I don't worry about those things. And by the way, I am looking for a G-scale company and a G-scale modeler. Whoever edits that annual about garden something, I don't know.
I got nothing.
I understand, but I would love to get a G-scaler involved in this if I can. If I can find somebody and find a company that produces a kit and somebody to build it.
We've got people. The response from the manufacturers has been very good to the new publication, which will be out. It's in the warehouse and it's shipping this week. So people who have pre-ordered it should start to see it here in the next week or so, week to 10 days. And I'm sure we got somebody that can help you out there, Jim.
Boy, that'd be great if you could let me know who that might be and who might want to build it. I mean, I know you
I've got a
would.
couple guys I could throw into that bus.
There you go. So I'll count on that. Thank you.
Fun.
That's all I got, for tonight. Anybody else have any questions for Martin?
I do. I was wondering, doing O-scale, does that also include the 3-rail stuff, or it's only 2-rail?
Historically, I started off in 3-rail when I was about half as tall as I am now. I still have that stuff, but most of my 3-rail stuff is pre-World War II stuff, because that was what my parents liked. And that's what I got instilled with. And my lower level of my layout actually is 3-rail. It's all hand laid, code 148, 3-rail. On ties that I cut myself. So most of my ties were cut through the bandsaw. I got a 12-inch bandsaw around the corner.
Well, actually, I was talking about articles in your magazine.
In the magazine, no. Last time we published a three-rail article in our magazine, we filled a bucket full of hate mail from the two-rail community. So we step real carefully on that line. We step up to it, but not over it.
Now,
So
Ed is the person that
dangerous.
writes. Ed, for the person that writes for both S scale and O scale from a different perspective. Yeah, I'll take a Lionel layout. Absolutely. I'm not interested in the layout. I'm interested in the building.
Yeah.
I'm interested in the modeling aspect of it. It doesn't make any difference to me if it has 3 rails or 2 rails, or the height of the rails for S scale or whatever. But I'm not interested in whether it's American Flyer. I'm not interested whether it's Lionel. But if they build buildings, if they produce scenery, if they're producing modeling for whether it's 3 rail or 2 rail, I'm all over it. I love those kind of models because, frankly, I started my MMR on my Lionel layout. And I had built structures. I got my structures from my buildings I had built for my Lionel layout. I got electrical from my Lionel layout, basically. I got most of civil for my Lionel layout, basically. So, you know, it can be done. It's just a question of, it's the building aspect. It's the model building that I think is more important. And you know, for example, the O scale house that Chris had built by Greg, that would fit on whether it's 3 rail or 2 rail, as far as I'm concerned, depending on what the modeler wants to do. And the key to me is he a model builder and not just buying stuff off the shelf and putting it on a piece of plywood.
Jim, I do the same thing for the magazine. You know, it's structures, scenery. You know, I just have to get a little creative about what photos get shown sometimes. But the quality of the modeling is, if it's high enough, it's going in.
Yeah.
You know, and I have a couple of 3 railers who write for me regularly, and they understand and they work with it, and they do beautiful scenery work. They do beautiful structures.
Yep.
I got a 5 or 6 part series coming up. Not this issue, but maybe the next issue or 2 out. It's a fantastic example of incredible construction of a bridge in Pennsylvania, West Virginia, Ohio area. I don't remember exactly where, but the bridge is like 3-4 feet. It's bigger than that. It's about 4 feet. It's pretty much dominates that entire side of his layout. But that's the critical part of his area. He needs to show that bridge. No, it's a big effort. Of course, there's the other guy. I got an article coming eventually. He's got a 1/4 inch scale version of the Wisconsin in his barn,
yep.
Which is about 18.5 feet long. But he hasn't taken it out and shot the ducks with it yet. But you know, I'm waiting to see what kind of layout he builds around it. It could get very interesting.
And Ed, I'll tell you something else that I do in my articles. I write about HO. I write about N. I write about G. I don't care what the scale is. I don't care what the hobby is. I have written about figure painters. I have written about war modeling. I have written about war gaming. It's the modeling aspect of it. And I'm telling you, the diorama people, some of the dioramas that they're producing, they're not building model railroads. They are building models of railroad subjects. And the diorama itself is, that may be all the space they've got right now. And what they're doing is just, it's unbelievable. It really is. So as long as it's model building, I'm all over it. That's what I'm trying to get to, because the people that are doing it could be the mentor that'll get somebody else interested in doing it. That's why on this show, I don't really care what the scale is. I talk about I'm a traction guy. Everybody knows it, I guess. And I'm an O-scale traction guy. I guess most people know that. But that doesn't mean that I don't really enjoy the HO, the N, the G scale, the other scales, or the other hobbies, because you can learn so much from those people. The skills, the talents that they have, the techniques that they have developed, the tools that they use that I've never heard of some of before. Or, that's the kind of thing that I think is really important for the hobby.
I do know a couple of young modelers that may be interested in coming on. They're really good. They're HO modelers, but they do a lot of custom painting, custom detailing. He's pretty decent.
No, I'm all over it. I mean, that's great. What I'm interested in are model builders. And what I'm trying to get to do is I am concerned that the techniques that you just saw demonstrated by Martin, we're losing those in the hobby to a large extent because Martin doesn't have the time to do what he did tonight very often. He's got a life. He can't provide the kind of help and knowledge that he possesses to other people. Well, when he stops building for whatever reason, then we're going to lose that capability to the hobby. And in my opinion, that's what's gotten the hobby to the level it is right now in model building. The kind of stuff that you do, James. I mean, I think that's fantastic. But that knowledge base is what I'm concerned about that we're losing if we don't get it passed on to the next generation. And whether it's an HO modeler, whoever it is, that's the kind of thing that I'm interested in trying to pursue. So thank you. Just let me know who they are. I'll be glad to contact them.
Yeah, if you don't mind, I'll send his email to him and I'll let him know what it's about and see if he can get in contact with you. But he's going on 20 years old and he does kit bashing and he basically details and puts together locomotives from scratch almost. So it's pretty cool.
Fantastic. Interesting. How about any more questions for Martin? Well, if that's it, thank you so much, Martin. I really do appreciate it. And I'll look forward to what you're going to talk about the next time that you're on.
No, I think I can probably guarantee it will be another maintenance away car.
Well, I think that's great. I'll let you know what Leadville Designs tells me. I want everybody to remember the Build Along series. Clark Cooning is doing the downtown deco. He's already started. His next one will be next show coming up. And he'll be doing some more work on it on the kit then. Bob Farquhar and Dale Rush's Blair Line structure starts April the 17th. Gaylord Gill and Randy Boscher are doing the Bar Mills 1 kit starting April the 17th. Rick and Maureen Hunter are doing the Hunter Line 30-foot King Truss Bridge starting May the 22nd. And Bill Davis and Steve Millie's rail scale models are going to start a kit this fall. And assuming Leadville Designs is interested, we just heard that Martin is going to start this fall one of their kits. So I'm encouraged by it. I hope everybody is enjoying it. I have to say I am really disappointed we didn't have more people show up tonight to show us their work on Chris and Greg's build of his Conowingo model house. I know that he sold a lot of kits. I know a lot of people were interested in it. And I know a lot of people attended the series and have seen it on YouTube. It's frustrating for me that we didn't get more people coming tonight to show the modeling that they have accomplished by it. But maybe they'll come the next time, and I encourage them to do so. And if you missed tonight, you're welcome to come next time. Just let me know, send me an email, and I'll make sure that you get on the next show coming up. So with that said, our next Zoom meeting is going to be Saturday, April the 3rd. Featured modeler is Will Lamont. He is an N-scale modeler. He's a really talented guy, and I think you're really going to enjoy him. Clark Cooning's going to do his build along with the downtown deco. Martin's going to be back with his scratch building. And Al Collins is going to be here. So it's going to be an interesting time. No, Al is not going to be here. Al will be here on the 7th, not the 3rd. So Hunterline Models will be here on the 3rd. Well, that's it for this evening. Thank you so very much for being here. I really do appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something. And I look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks again. And Ed, I